What's up, everybody? This is an open discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is.
Cheryl.
And today we're going to be talking about the movie Knives Out. So, spoiler alert, and we're going to go ahead and just get right into it. So, I am a person that I love detective stories. I love Sherlock Holmes. I'm a huge Sherlock Holmes fan. I love the books. I love the show Sherlock. I love the movies that I used to watch back in the day. I love a good whodunit mystery, Agatha Christie style. That is my jam. So I absolutely love this movie.
I also like what you said. I love this movie. It's like I can't like I know I've seen it like 3 times. The first time I watched it, I had to watch it again the very next day. I was just like, "Oh, I love this movie." And like it's just so I just love everything about it. It's so clever, it's so beautiful. Like it looks so good. The design of it, like from the editing to the production design to the cinematography, all so beautiful. Like there's just so many things about it. I'm just like, what do I say? Like there's so many things to say. Like the show is not long enough to discuss like all the things that I love about this movie. Um,
Yeah, it's very true because I was just thinking the same thing that there's so much that we could focus on. You were talking about how the movie looks, how it's acted. I mean, for me, this is also my third time watching this movie. I saw it in theaters when it came out. I watched it to show my roommates and streamed it with a friend over during this year, and then we watched it again for the purposes of like talking about it for the show. And each and every time, well, after watching it the first time, the second time, I picked up on certain things. And this third time, I picked up on even more things. And that's what makes a movie fun is that when you can go back and rewatch it, knowing exactly what's going to happen and recognizing the plants that are throughout the entire movie. Because this movie, I almost feel like should be a masterclass example on plants and payoffs. It really is. Like, it is so well done in that way.
I looked up I was like there was just so many things like I mentioned that is so great about this movie. I was like they have to have one like an Oscar for or two or more. And I looked it up and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I can't believe they only got nominated for screenplay. And I was like, no way, they didn't even win. Like no way. Like it's so good. It's so clever. It's so entertaining. It's so good. Like if you haven't seen this movie yet, you need to go and watch it. It's so good. So good.
Yeah, it's super well done, and when you're watching through the movie, so the director we should mention is Rian Johnson, and most people probably know Rian Johnson's name now because of Star Wars: The Last Jedi, and he also did Looper before that, and which probably is what, and then he did Brick before that, and Last Jedi is probably he got Last Jedi after his work on Looper. And to be fair, Last Jedi was a very divisive movie, and you have people who love Rian Johnson because of that movie. You have people that hate him because of the movie. That doesn't matter when you go in and you watch Knives Out because everything that you might have felt like didn't work with The Last Jedi, with those characters that weren't original characters, completely, absolutely works in Knives Out. And I feel like objectively, even if you didn't like his work in The Last Jedi, it is hard not to like his work with Knives Out because he clearly has love for the detective mystery who done it murder genre, that whole like clue aspect of it, and the whole thing that he did in Last Jedi where it was about subverting expectations. Well, in this movie, subverting expectations actually makes it an even stronger movie. It's not subversion for subversion's sake. It's taking a tried and true formula of the detective solving the murder plot with these people, and even down to the reveal at the end of who done it. It takes all of that and it plays their expectations and it flips it on its head. And we're gonna get into like this. At least I want to get into the specifics about why it works so well in a minute, but just that is the reason why it feels different than when you're watching his work on The Last Jedi, and it really does show reverence for the genre of storytelling as a whole when it comes to the whole whodunit like subgenre.
Yeah, like it there's just so many tools in it that I feel like worked so well, like from the very beginning, like, you know, you just it's like even the music, it's just like, oh, something is like this is like a story about death, and you just already know because of like just all the classic imagery, like you have the mansion in the middle of nowhere, and like and then you have the, detectives there, and they're like asking the family questions, and like the way that whole scene was put together, so clever, because instead of like interviewing like so many people and it being different, it's like a chain. Like they're all being asked the same things. They're
The
all,
editing.
yeah, like it's just the way it's pieced together is like, they're asking a question and different people are answering it. So you don't have to hear the
Mm.
same question, and it's all like unfolding at once, so that like we're learning everything in the order that they want us to learn it in. But if it was reality, it would be so much more boring and long and
Yeah, you actually, the way it's edited, you even have characters ask like answering questions that were asked to other characters in the same sequence. And one of the best versions is when Daniel Craig's detective Benoit Blanc is talking to Jamie Lee Curtis's character and trying to bait her into giving family secrets, and she immediately starts going in on him, saying things like, "Oh, you think I'm gonna like give family secrets? Do you think I'm stupid enough to?" And then it cuts to her husband, and her husband is spilling all the beans easily. And that's another thing that works in this movie's favor, is that it is actually funny. And considering that it is a movie about death, it is more funny than it has a right to be. And I love it. It's so amazingly well done in that way.
it just unfolds. So it feels like you have this like book that is like an accordion sort of, but then like it unfolds like so perfectly. Like you reveal more information, and you learn even more about the mystery, and like and it rewinds, and like it goes back, and like you see the same like occasions in the film happen over and over, but from a different perspective, and each time you learn something more about the mystery. It's kind of like, you're one of the detectives where you're just getting more information and more is being revealed, and like you just know. And it just, even right up to the end in the reveal, it's like there was even more to it, and you almost don't really know what's going to happen until the very end. And I always say, like, I love movies like that because I don't want to know what's going to happen. I don't want to be able to predict it. Like, I want to be on the edge of my seat, being like, what is going to happen? And this is one of those movies.
Right. And it's worth mentioning like a few things. So one, those sequences that you're talking about where you see them from different point of view, the whole purpose is to basically show that the family is lying. Like they're all a bunch of liars, and each of them has a reason for wanting their father dead. And it establishes clear motives so that you as the audience are like, okay, I do wonder who actually kills him. And it starts with the murder. It starts with the finding of the body. So it is unraveling the mystery of what happened that night from seeing these different perspectives. And so that's the whole reason that we see these characters, and we establish that they each had a stake in this man's death. So now we're going to figure out what happens. And if there's any theme that seems to be popping up again for like these videos, for the movies that we're talking about and reviewing, it seems to be the swerve like partway through the movie, because whether it's the 30-minute mark of Better Watch Out or the 30-minute mark of Soul, it is, I looked at the time, it's the 40-minute mark in this movie that is 2 hours and 10 minutes long. At 40 minutes, you know who the murderer is. And that's what we're talking about with the subversion, because normally that would be saved towards the end. So you're thinking to yourself, what's the rest of this movie going to be? Because then it kind of turns into this whole, oh, we like the main character who is responsible for this death. We want her to get away with it. And so you're just rooting. It becomes this whole movie of like how it turns from how to catch a murderer to how to get away with murder. And you're praying that she gets away with it because you like her that much. And the movie plays on that because now that you know who actually did the crime, all of a sudden everybody else seems innocent by comparison. And so therefore it can catch you off guard at the end when the true villain, the true murderer comes out because you weren't expecting it, since if the movie had done its normal structure, you would have seen this character and been, oh yeah, that person's the murderer. But because it shows you that the main character is the one that did it, you spend the rest of the movie thinking that everyone else is innocent because you know what happened.
Yeah. And I definitely, like, now that I've seen it a third time, there were some things where I was like, "Oh, I can't, like, it's actually kind of obvious." Like, they give so many, like, hints and clues that, like, say, like, it's this guy, but it's just because I think you don't even see him for a while. Like, he's not even introduced into the movie for a while.
The
I don't.
movie the movie literally gives away the ending at the beginning in two ways. One, it starts with that coffee cup. It starts with that coffee cup. It ends with that coffee cup. But two, it also, I didn't notice this the first time or second time that I watched the movie. I noticed it the third time, where you have I forget the old man's name, Christopher Plummer's character, but Christopher Plummer's
Harlan.
character, Harlan, where Harlan literally he says in the scene talking to Marta that Ransom, because this is a spoiler talk, so we're just gonna get right into it. But like, he says that Ransom is like playing life so loose like a game that he wouldn't know the difference between a real knife and an actual prop, which is the ending of the movie. And I like, mine was so blown. I noticed that. I was like, they are literally giving you everything you need.
Everything. It's so neat. Like, and when I say neat, well, yeah, it's neat, like it's cool, but it's so tidy is what I mean. Like, everything is just like a bow on the top. And every time I watch it, well, I guess like the second and third time, I'm always like looking for holes that I could poke through and be like, but wait, what about this? What about this? I think I did find one, which I do. I want to hear your opinion about it. Should I just bring it up now?
Sure, we're already here. Let's go.
All right. I was wondering how Hugh Ransom
Hmm.
could have killed Fran at the washing laundry place if he was arrested before what's her name, Marta goes there.
Yeah.
So
So that's.
she
What you
would have
say?
he would have had to done that like at least an hour or something beforehand, or a lot more before, and then like she would have been like long dead before she got there, which doesn't make sense for the whole setup trying to frame her for killing Fran.
So they do explain it. Actually, it is something that Daniel Craig, that Benoit does bring up. The
Do it in his
whole thing
voice.
was, yeah, the foghorn leghorn raw. Now, I do perceive that when he was trying to understand what was happening, he had to meet with Fran at around 8 a.m. But he took the thing that she gave him, the threat and the meeting, and gave it to Marta instead, probably around the time of 7:30, I reckon. And at that precise moment, he went and he met with Fran, at which point he actually did murder her by sticking the syringe into her neck. But then remember, by the time that he had met up with the lovely Marta, it was around 9 o'clock, because it was 9:32 when the two were in the vehicle before he said that we have to be at the place the email said around 10 a.m. So, and you're taking that into account. His original plan was then to call the cops while she was investigating Fran to have them show up and arrest her right at the precise moment to make it so that she was caught. But he never planned on actually being caught because of the fact that Marta is a terrible driver. And then she had no choice but to allow herself to have to drive the great Benoit in the vehicle while, unfortunately, Mr. Ransom was taken away. So the point is, his plan was ruined.
That was so
good. South, baby. Grew up. Everybody, it's okay. I'm from Georgia. Don't at me. It's all right. I can do this. So the whole point was that his plan was to have the cops come and catch her in the act of with the basically dead body. But he attacked Fran earlier in that day when they were supposed to meet, because they were supposed to meet around 8. And then he went and did his own thing that he was supposed to, like everything else that you saw in the movie. But the fact that he was arrested prevented him from calling the cops to then have them show up right when Marta is meeting with Fran. So he wasn't able to frame her in that way. And then, of course, Marta called the ambulance. So it changed everything.
All right, I'm going to have to watch that back.
Yeah, go check. You only have to watch the end of the movie because they explain it actually at the end of the movie, and it's very tight. And that's the good thing about the movie, is that it's a very tight movie where everything you see is a plant to pay off later. When you see Jamie Lee Curtis go in, she's in her room and she's crying, like before they're gonna open the will or whatever, and she's looking through the notes. You know, if you're paying attention, you'll notice that those notes, the way that they look, the type of paper that they're written on, is the same paper that the husband finds in the office later, to basically hint at the fact that it is part of, and she talks about the game. So to hint that this is what it is. And one of the best things that I love in this movie is the journey of the baseball, which is something easily forgotten. But the husband goes into the office to find the note, sees that there's nothing in there, takes the baseball, throws it out the window in frustration. And then what happens is that you have Benoit, who picks up the baseball, and he has it with him for a little bit more in the movie. But the point is so that he can throw it to the dog. And like the dog, because the dog finds it and plays fetch with it, the dog brings it the dog brings the thing that Marta fell off of, the landing piece or whatever, the piece of wood. The dog brings the wood to Benoit so the dog can get the ball that Benoit picked up that the husband threw out of the window earlier. And so now Benoit has the little stick thing, and the dog has the ball. And then throughout the rest of the movie, the dog has the ball again, and the dog is sitting next to Jamie Lee Curtis's character. And at the end of the movie, the only reason Jamie Lee Curtis goes into her father's office and finds the note is because she was taking the ball and putting it back. Yep. So in essence, her husband actually led her to the truth. It's amazing.
So
and that's just the ball.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, how did they not win the Oscar? It's just so good. Like, everything is just so clever. Like, even the cup. The cup is really clever.
I love that it begins and ends with the cup. It's like, that's the other thing. When it comes to making movies, and it is something that all of us that want to like do anything creative, whether it's writing for comic books, television shows, or movies, is a way of leaving your audience feeling satisfied if that is your intention. You don't always have to, but if your intention is to leave them satisfied, this is a great movie to look at, because everything is made to build towards your satisfaction. The whole, I guess, gimmick of Marta throwing up whenever she tries to lie is a funny gimmick, and it feels like, okay, this is just so that you can put her in funny situations where she can't lie. But then that even pays off when she's able to lie for the briefest of moments in order to trick Ransom into admitting that he killed this person who he thinks is still alive, because she just said the person was still alive. And then because you don't like Ransom, you can then have her puke on him in his face.
Which was so gross, but I was like, that was so
But
awesome though.
but it's a satisfying moment, and
Yeah.
that's the point. So once again, even just her like regurgitating upon lying is a plant to pay off by the end of the movie. And that's what I mean when I just talk about you have all these little elements, even the whole thing where you find out that when Fran and Meg want to like smoke and they're going into her stash. That exists in any other movie. It's just a scene where you show some people trying to get high, but that scene exists so that now at the end of the movie, Marta knows where the toxicology report is, and that's the entire movie. There's all these scenes that don't exist in a vacuum. They exist because it is going to lead to somewhere else in the movie, either for a character or for the plot as a whole. And so that's why it's very tight. And by the end of the movie, remember, we started that movie with the mug. When we end with that mug and she's lifting it and raising it and it says "My House" and cuts to black, it's a cheering moment. You almost can't help but just like shout to the heavens at how awesome this is. It is so hard not to like this movie.
Yeah, and there's just so many clever things, like the whole thing with the dogs barking. So, and then when you first see Ransom, the dogs are barking at him, and like not that many scenes earlier, when they were talking about the events of that night, they mentioned that the dogs were barking, or like,
Mm-hmm.
and Harlan tells Marta that the dogs won't bark at her because he knows them, or they know her and stuff like that. And even like his name, like being Hugh, and he strolls in
You.
and he was like, only the help calls me Hugh. And
Yeah.
it's funny because Marta doesn't call him Hugh, but Fran does, so it's almost like for that specific reason, so that Fran can say, "Hugh did
You did
this."
this. Yeah.
It's
I
so good.
and see, I had actually forgot about the whole thing with like the hue thing. Even the hue is, like you said, it is a plant to be paid off. The dogs as well, and so everything in this movie is just so tight. It's so tight, and it's funny that you're trying to find holes because I was trying to do the same. And after a third watching, I actually feel the movie is tighter than I originally thought when I first went to watch the movie.
Right?
The the only thing that I could argue was I was with a nurse. One of my friends is a nurse, and I was with him when we saw the movie when you could go to theaters and be safe. And he was saying that is a little bit fantastical. The element of being able to pick up a jar and just tell like the slightest difference in viscosity that it's a different thing. He was saying that's not realistic. There's no thing. And also he was saying that there's also no way that if you're given 100 milligrams of morphine that you're gonna be alive for 10 minutes and then die. He said no, you're just going you die right then. That's it. So the movie clearly had to take some type of scientific liberties, at least according to my friend. But that aside, as far as the storytelling itself, I got no issues.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, to the common audience, they're not gonna be like, that's not how it works. And also, like,
Right.
who cares? It's just a tool, you know. It's a device to just forget about it. Just
Right.
ignore that detail.
And it's so great because of the fact that when they play with it, when it gets knocked over and she accidentally switches it, her accidentally switching it actually is what saves the guy's life. But Harlan thinks he's dying, but he actually wasn't because she didn't have to look at it anyway. She knew just from touching. So, and the thing that you thought she was guilty of, she's actually completely innocent of. So the movie just plays with all these different expectations because you're not going to think Ransom is guilty because you think that she's guilty up until the moment that you realize that the toxicology report's going to say that Harlan died with the exact amount of what he needed in his bloodstream. And then all of a sudden the movie takes a new turn. And so the reason I love the movie so much is that even with all those subversions of expectations, we still get the detective unraveling the mystery and telling the audience all of the things in the movie that allows us to then know who the culprit is and to be like, aha, it was you and this is why. And that's one of the best parts about detective stories. And this movie still has it, even though you know who the murderer is or think you do 40 minutes into the movie out of a 2 hour film.
The
So great.
donut has a hole. The donut hole that has an even smaller hole in the donut hole. And so therefore it's actually a smaller donut.
And it's just like, oh
That
my
is
gosh,
the movie.
that
That is
it it
the movie.
it truly is. And Marta as a character, just want to touch on this real quick. I love her as a character. I love how smart she is. I love how resourceful she is. I love how she gets involved, but I also love how kind she is. And they make sure to let you know that the reason that she wins in the end is because of her kindness and the fact that she played the game her way, not because of playing it anybody else's way, not even Harlan's way.
Mhm. And it's like it's not about the money.
Mm-mm. No,
For everyone
although
else it's about the money.
right? And it's amazing how fast that family changed from "oh, you're one of us" to "she's not even a family member"
Yeah.
in a
Oh,
minute.
I really love the scene when Walt like kind of corners her at her apartment and he was like, I mean, with our resources, we could help you with the right lawyers and stuff like that. And she was like,
Mm-hmm.
so you're saying that you're the that Harlan has like the resources and stuff, so they're really my resources that I could use to hire. That was
Yep,
so like powerful. Like she like in that moment, I feel like that was maybe the first time
yep,
when she just like became a really strong person who could like stand up for herself and defend herself, and like that was so good. And I don't know
yeah. She did
if
it.
you've seen that actor before. He's
Yeah, and oh, are you talking about Jeffrey? Not Jeffrey Rush, but Michael Shannon,
I'm not sure what his name is, but
the
he's
guy in the guy you're talking about. He played
yeah,
General
the
Zod.
guy
He
who
played General Zod in Man of Steel as well,
he's
and he's in Shape of Water.
yeah, so I seen him in Shape of Water, and his character in Shape of Water is like so like similar but different, and I mean similar in some ways, but also very different. And it's so
Hmm.
like fun to like see that actor play that character being like bested by Marta.
Marta Cabrera, the girl from Brazil, Uruguay, Panama. No one actually knows, even though we all care about her.
Like, take that, bad person.
Hmm. Oh yeah, and there's a brief scene where they talk about politics in this movie, but it's funny because it doesn't come across as trying to preach or give any one side the upper hand. It actually feels just like family members who are on opposite sides of things arguing. I really like that because I feel like it can be challenging for some writers to write um I guess challenging topics into their stories without allowing themselves to come out a little too much and making it actually feel kind of equal on both sides. But I feel like this movie did a good job. That scene didn't read as uncomfortable to me. It read more funny, even though they were talking about real world issues at the time that were happening.
And it was applicable to Marta and her family. So, and I think it was also pretty valuable because it really like painted a picture of their characters, like, and their relationship and how they actually view Marta. Because like
True.
on the one hand, like, yeah, like they care about her and stuff, but then they also have assumptions about her,
Yeah.
and they don't really know her. They're just looking at her from the outside the same way that they're looking at these political views, where like they don't
Mm,
really know because they're not part of it. They're not in it or like necessarily directly affected by it. And I like it's kind of funny that they talk about it in front of her and
mm,
they don't care to ask her feelings about it, when obviously she's one of the people who are, close
impacted.
yeah, to that um political debate.
Right. No, it's very important. And then even that debate kind of exists as to establish the whole thing about her mother, because one of the characters incorrectly assumes that her mother is legal up until the point where they find out that she's not. And that that whole device exists because if you didn't have it, Marta would be the character that would just say, "Oh, well, I'm guilty. I'm going to jail." But because she doesn't want anything bad to happen to her mother, now she has a reason to fight. And so that's the whole reason that even the mother not being legal exists as a device in the movie, because it's another thing that is it exists to enable the main character to push forward. So
Raising the stakes.
exactly, nothing in the movie is just arbitrary. Everything has a purpose and leads to something else, and that's why I can't help but just absolutely just love this movie and would recommend it to anybody that's into this genre, but also just into watching a fun movie.
Yeah, I definitely had a good time. I'll watch
So
it again.
yeah, I probably will too at some point. But we're gonna go ahead and cut it there. We clearly both love this movie. Is there anything else that you wanted to bring up, Cheryl, before we go?
No, I think like we pretty much covered all the main things.
Okay. Well, have you seen Knives Out? What did you think about it? Comment below. Let us know what you thought. And while you're down there, if you could give us a like, share, subscribe. But even if you don't, though, I've been Chris with C3 Films. This has been an open discussion, and this has been Cheryl. And we will see you guys next time.
Later.